He was everything I wasn't. Captain of the football team. Perfect smile. Perfect life. Everyone loved him, especially her, the blonde cheerleader he called his girlfriend. And me? I was invisible. Just another quiet kid sitting in the back row, sketching faces I'd never have the courage to talk to. But there was something about the way he looked at me, too long, too often, that made it impossible to believe it was all in my head. It started with glances across the hallway. Then, one night after practice, he found me alone in the art room, and everything I thought I knew about him, about myself, began to change. Because sometimes the eyes tell the truth before the mouth dares to. If you've ever loved someone you weren't supposed to, this story will stay with you long after it ends. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what starts as a secret glance will soon become a confession no one was ready for. It started like every other Monday morning. The bell ringing too soon, the hallways buzzing with voices that felt too loud, and me trying not to make eye contact with anyone. Senior year was supposed to feel different. It didn't. Same lockers, same faces, same quiet corner where I pretended to be part of something bigger than I actually was. Then he walked in. Caleb Monroe. Everyone knew his name before he even said it. Captain of the football team, straight A student, the kind of guy teachers adored and students tried to imitate. He moved through the hallway like he belonged there more than the rest of us. Confidence in every step, that easy smile that seemed to make people orbit around him. And right beside him was Lauren, the cheerleader with the perfect ponytail, laughing at something he whispered. They looked like they'd stepped straight out of a teenage movie, the golden couple. I tried not to stare. I really did. But then Caleb looked up, just for a second, and his eyes met mine. There's a kind of silence that happens in crowded places, the kind that feels like the whole world pauses just long enough to remind you that you exist. That's what it felt like when he looked at me. Not curiosity, not mockery, something else, something heavier. Then the moment broke. Someone called his name, and he turned away, smiling again like nothing had happened. I told myself it didn't mean anything, but my heartbeat didn't believe me. Art class was the only part of school where I didn't feel invisible. I sat near the back by the windows, sketching whatever came to mind. Faces, hands, the texture of light falling across someone's shoulder. That morning, I was halfway through a charcoal drawing when the door opened. Mrs. Keaton, our art teacher, smiled. "Class, we've got a new student joining us for the semester. He needed an elective credit. Caleb, you can take that empty seat next to Evan." I froze. He smiled politely, walked over, and dropped his backpack on the chair beside mine. "Hey," he said, voice lower than I expected. "Evan, right?" "Yeah." I swallowed. "You're Caleb." He grinned. "So you do know me." I felt my ears burn. "Everyone knows you." He laughed softly, pulling out his sketchbook. Guess that's not always a good thing. I didn't know what he meant by that, but I didn't ask. We worked in silence for a while. Mrs. Keaton had us draw still life objects from the front table, fruit, glass bottles, folded fabric. My pencil moved automatically, but my mind was anywhere but on the paper. Every now and then, I could feel him glancing sideways, checking what I was drawing. "You're really good," he said finally. I shrugged. "I just like it." He leaned closer, eyes tracing the shading on the apple one was sketching. "No, seriously, you make it look real." The warmth of his breath hit my shoulder, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe. "Thanks, I managed." He smiled again, the kind of smile that felt private, like he wasn't giving it to anyone else. After class, I expected him to go back to his world. Football, friends, the girlfriend. But when the bell rang, he stayed by the door, waiting. "You walking this way?" he asked. Yeah." We stepped into the hallway together. Students turned to look, not at me, but at him. The whispers followed us like shadows. "Never seen Caleb walking with him before," someone muttered. He ignored it. I tried to. "So," he said, "you always this quiet?" "Mostly." He nodded thoughtfully. "It's kind of nice. People talk too much anyway." "Except you," I said before I could stop myself. He laughed, surprised. You think I talk too much? Maybe. Well, at least you're honest. We walked in silence after that. But it wasn't awkward. It felt like something alive was moving between us, invisible but real. That afternoon, I found him again, or maybe he found me. I was sitting alone on the bleachers after school, sketching the empty field. The sun was low, throwing long shadows across the grass. Thought I'd find you here, he said, climbing up beside me. I looked up. Shouldn't you be practicing? He shrugged. Practice ended early. And you decided to come here? Guess I did. He watched me draw for a minute. Quiet. You always draw people? Mostly. It's easier than talking to them. He smiled faintly. You ever draw me? My pencil froze. No. Would you? I looked at him, trying to tell if he was joking. He wasn't. His expression was calm, serious, like he actually wanted to know. I don't know if I could, I said quietly. Why not? Because I wouldn't know where to start. He laughed softly, but there was something in his eyes I couldn't name. Fair enough. Lauren's car pulled up near the field a few minutes later. She waved from the driver's seat, shouting, "Babe, let's go." He hesitated before standing. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I nodded. Yeah. He turned to leave, but halfway down the bleachers, he stopped and looked back. The sunlight hit his face just right, catching the faintest smile, the kind of smile that held a question. And then he was gone. That night, I couldn't draw. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that look again. The way his voice softened when he said my name. The way he paused before walking away. He was with her. Everyone knew that. But I couldn't shake the feeling that when he looked at me, something in him wanted to stop pretending. And that scared me more than anything else. The next few days were strange. Caleb kept showing up everywhere I went. It started small, quick nods in the hallway, a quiet hey at my locker. Then he began sitting next to me in art class, even when there were other empty seats. When Mrs. Keaton paired us up for a project, he didn't complain. He just smiled like it was exactly what he wanted. Lauren didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she just didn't care. She was always surrounded by her cheer squad, scrolling through her phone, talking about weekend parties. But sometimes when Caleb and I walked past, her smile would falter, and I could feel it. That tension that comes from a secret that isn't even a secret yet. On Thursday after school, Caleb caught up to me outside the main entrance. Hey, you busy right now? I stopped. Not really. Why? He shrugged, shoving his hands into his jacket pockets. Practice got canceled. Thought maybe you could help me with the art project. I frowned. You want to work on it today? He grinned. What, you got better plans? The truth was, I didn't. Fine, I said. Where? There's this little diner near the field. Best milkshakes in town. I hesitated. You mean together? He smirked. Well, yeah, it's a group project, isn't it? The diner looked like it hadn't changed since the 1980s. Red booths, neon signs, a jukebox in the corner playing soft rock. We slid into a booth near the window, papers and sketchbooks between us. He ordered 2 chocolate milkshakes before I could say anything. Trust me, he said. You like it. And damn it, he was right. We talked for hours about art, music, life after high school. I found out he wanted to study architecture, that he hated how people assumed football was the only thing he cared about. I'm tired of being everyone's idea of me, he said, staring into his drink. You mean the golden boy? He laughed softly. You said it, not me? Well, I said, you play the part well. Maybe too well. The way he said it made my chest tighten. At some point, the waitress dropped off the check. I reached for my wallet, but Caleb shook his head. I've got it. You don't have to. Relax, it's a milkshake, not a mortgage. I laughed, and for a moment it felt easy, natural, like we weren't sitting in public, pretending to be something we weren't. But then his phone buzzed. Lauren's name flashed on the screen. He looked at it for a long second before turning it face down on the table. You should probably answer that, I said. He met my eyes. I don't want to. My heart skipped. Why not? He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. Because when I'm with her, I feel like I'm playing a role. And when I'm here, he trailed off. When you're here, I asked quietly. He looked at me for a long time before saying, I feel like I can breathe. The air between us changed after that. It wasn't flirting, not exactly. It was quieter, more dangerous. On the way out, we walked side by side under flickering streetlights. Our shoulders brushed once. Neither of us moved away. When we reached my car, he stopped. Thanks for today, he said. I should be the one thanking you. I replied, you did buy me a milkshake. He smiled. Then maybe next time you can get the bill. Next time? Yeah, he said, eyes glinting. Unless you're planning on avoiding me. I tried to sound casual. Guess we'll see. He grinned, that slow, teasing grin that made it impossible to think straight. Good night, Evan. Night, Caleb. He turned and walked away, hands in his pockets. I didn't move until he disappeared into the dark. The next day at school, everything felt louder. People whispering in the hall. Lauren laughing too hard at something one of her friends said. Caleb glancing at me across the cafeteria when he thought no one was looking. But someone was looking. A guy from my math class, Jason, leaned over at lunch and muttered, You and Monroe hanging out now? Just for a project, I said quickly. Jason raised an eyebrow. Sure. The rumor spread faster than I expected. By last period, I could feel the stares. Caleb didn't seem to care. He sat next to me in art, same as always, even though people were whispering behind us. You okay? He asked under his breath. Yeah, just people talking. He smirked. Let them. It doesn't bother you? Not anymore. He said it like a challenge, like he wanted me to believe him. After class, I stayed behind to clean the brushes. When I turned, he was still there. You didn't have to wait, I said. He shrugged. Didn't feel like leaving yet. The room was quiet except for the ticking clock. The sunlight was fading, casting gold across his face. He stepped closer. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever think about what people would say if they knew who you really were? The question hit hard. I swallowed. All the time. He nodded slowly. Yeah, me too. For a second, we just stood there, too close, too aware of it. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Then he said softly, You make it look easy. What? Being yourself. I almost laughed. You think I'm not scared every day? His eyes softened. Then you hide it well. He took a step back like he was breaking his own spell. I should go, he said. Yeah. He walked to the door, then stopped. Evan. Yeah. He hesitated, then said, Don't listen to what people say. I try not to. He smiled faintly. Good. And then he was gone again, leaving me alone in a room that still smelled like paint, silence, and something I didn't know how to name. That night, I replayed everything. The diner, the look in his eyes, the things he shouldn't have said. It was all wrong. He had a girlfriend, a reputation, a life that didn't have room for me. And yet, when I finally fell asleep, the last thing I saw wasn't her smile. It was his. By the next week, it had become impossible to pretend nothing was happening. Caleb and I weren't friends anymore, at least not the kind people accepted easily. We still sat together in art class, but it wasn't just about sketches and shading now. He leaned close to look at my work, even when he didn't have to, his shoulder brushing mine like it was an accident. He'd laugh too softly, his breath warm against my ear. And every time I told myself to pull back, I didn't. Lauren started watching us. Not saying anything, just watching. Friday afternoon, I was heading to my locker when Caleb appeared out of nowhere, that familiar, easy grin on his face. You're hard to find. I wasn't hiding, I said, though maybe I was. He leaned against the lockers, arms crossed. You coming to the game tonight? I snorted. Right, because I blend in so well with your fan club. He grinned. I'll save you a seat. Next to who? Your girlfriend. Something flickered in his eyes. Quick, like lightning before a storm. She's sitting with the team's families tonight. Right, I said. So you just happen to have a free seat. He smiled faintly. Guess so. I tried to sound casual. We'll see. Evan, he said softly, and when I looked up, his expression was serious. It'd mean a lot if he came. And just like that, I was doomed. The bleachers were packed that night. The smell of popcorn, the cold air biting at my cheeks, the roar of the crowd echoing across the field. Caleb was easy to spot, helmet gleaming under the lights, moving with that impossible confidence. He looked untouchable. And then, during a timeout, he turned toward the stands, right where I sat, and smiled. Not at the crowd. Not at her. At me. My stomach flipped. I pretended to check my phone, but it was useless. The whole world narrowed down to that look. They won the game by 2 points. The school erupted in cheers. Lauren ran onto the field, arms open, hair shining under the floodlights. She kissed him in front of everyone. I told myself I didn't care, but the lie hurt going down. Afterward, I tried to leave unnoticed, blending into the crowd, heading toward the parking lot. Then I heard his voice. Evan. I turned. He was jogging toward me, helmet under his arm, sweat still on his neck. Hey, I said, try not to look at him too long. Congrats. He grinned. Thanks. You saw the last play? I saw the whole thing. He laughed. You didn't even cheer. Didn't want to embarrass you. Pretty sure you couldn't. Lauren's voice cut through the noise. Caleb, come on, we're all heading to Mason's. He looked toward her, then back at me. I'll catch up later, he said. Caleb, she repeated, sharper this time. He hesitated. Then quietly, wait for me by the art room after you get home. I'll be there. And before I could answer, he was gone. I almost didn't go. I told myself it was stupid, that whatever this was, it couldn't end well. But sometime around midnight, I found myself standing outside the dark art building, breath foggy in the cold. A few minutes later, he arrived, still in his team jacket, hair damp from a quick shower, eyes tired but alert. You came, he said. You asked. He smiled faintly. Fair enough. We slipped inside. The hallway lights were off, but the moonlight from the high windows painted everything in shades of silver and blue. He led me into the art room, where our sketches still covered the tables. It felt strange being there after hours, quiet, forbidden, like the whole world had stepped aside for us. I needed a break from all that, he said finally, sitting on one of the tables. The noise, the pretending. With Lauren, he sighed, with everything. I stood near the window, watching frost creep along the glass. Why me, Caleb? He frowned. What do you mean? I mean, out of everyone. Why keep talking to me? Why risk all this? He hesitated, then said softly, because you see me differently. When you look at me, it's not about what I am to everyone else. I don't think you even know what you want, I said. He nodded slowly. You're right, but I know what I feel when I'm around you. My chest tightened. You shouldn't say things like that. He stood, closing the distance between us, then stopped me. I didn't. He was close enough now that I could smell the faint scent of cologne and the sweat still clinging to his skin. His hand lifted, hesitated, then fell to his side. You make it hard to think straight, he said, voice low. Caleb, I know, he said quickly. I know it's wrong. She's good to me. She doesn't deserve this. Then why are you here? He let out a shaky breath. Because I can't stay away. The honesty in his voice made it worse. I turned away, trying to find words, but all I found was the sound of my heartbeat. This isn't fair, I said finally. I know. He stepped closer until our shoulders touched. My pulse was a wildfire now. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us hummed with something too big to name. Then, without thinking, he reached up, his hand brushing my jaw, trembling slightly. Tell me to stop, he whispered. But I didn't. He kissed me. It wasn't perfect. It was hesitant, clumsy, desperate. But it was real. When we broke apart, he looked terrified. I shouldn't have done that, he said. Yeah, I whispered. But you did. He stared at me for a long time. Then quietly, Evan, what if I don't want to stop? I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because the truth was neither of us did. Monday morning felt like walking into a battlefield. The air in the hallway was thick with whispers. Conversation stopped when I passed. Eyes followed me, sharp, curious, cruel. I didn't have to guess why. Rumors in high school spread faster than any truth ever could. I tried to keep my head down, clutching my books tight, pretending I didn't hear the fragments floating through the noise. Saw them after the game. In the art room, together. His girlfriend doesn't know yet. Every word was a knife. When I reached my locker, Caleb was already there, leaning against a metal door like nothing was wrong. "Morning," he said softly. "Don't." He frowned. "Don't what?" "Don't act like this is normal." He looked around. "You mean the staring?" "Yes, the staring. The rumors. All of it." He sighed, lowering his voice. "People talk, Evan. They'll move on. Not when it's you they're talking about." I said, "You're the school's golden boy, remember?" He gave a tired half-smile. Guess my crown slipping. "Caleb, this isn't funny." He leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then meet me after school. We'll talk away from all this." I hesitated, but something in his eyes, desperate, sincere, made me nod. By lunch, things got worse. Lauren sat at her usual table surrounded by her friends, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. She was quiet, distant, picking at her food. I saw Caleb glance at her from across the cafeteria, guilt flickering across his face before he turned back to me. "You think she knows?" I asked under my breath. He shook his head. "Not yet. Not yet." I repeated. "You make it sound like you're waiting for it to happen." He looked down. "Maybe I am." That scared me more than the rumors. After school, I waited behind the gym. The cold air stung my face, but I couldn't go home, not without knowing what he planned to say. He showed up a few minutes later, still in his practice gear, hair damp with sweat. "Hey," he said. "Hey." He shoved his hands into his pockets. "So I guess people found out." "You think." He grimaced. "Look, it's not like we did anything wrong." I let out a hollow laugh. "You kissed me in the art room. You have a girlfriend. Half the school saw us walking out together." He ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't plan for this to happen." Neither did I. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the muffled thump of a basketball from the gym inside. Finally, he said, "I talked to Lauren." My stomach dropped. "What?" She asked if there was something going on. I told her no. "You lied." He met my eyes. What was I supposed to say? "The truth." He laughed bitterly. "Yeah, that'd go over great. Hey, babe, I think I might have feelings for someone else, and it's a guy." I winced at the sarcasm. "You're scared." He took a step closer. "Wouldn't you be?" I looked at him for a long time. "I already am." We stood there in silence, the space between us shrinking with every breath. I could see the exhaustion in his face, the cracks in the perfect image everyone believed in. Finally, he said, "You think I don't care, but I do. More than I should." "Then why keep pretending?" "Because I don't know how not to." Something in me broke then, not from anger, but from understanding. I knew what it was like to live afraid of yourself. I stepped closer, voice low. "You can't keep me a secret forever." "I know." "Then what are we doing?" He looked at me helplessly, trying not to lose everything. That night, I stayed up staring at the ceiling, my phone glowing beside me. No messages from him. But around midnight, it finally buzzed. "Caleb, you up?" "Me." "Yeah." "Caleb, can I come over?" "Me, are you serious?" "Caleb, please." 10 minutes later, headlights cut through my window blinds. I opened the door before he could knock. He was still wearing his hoodie and jeans, hair messy, eyes restless. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Yeah." I replied, "Me neither." We stood there, unsure what to do next. He glanced at my bed, then back at me. "Can I just sit for a bit?" I nodded. "Sure." We didn't talk for a while. The only sound was the rain against the window. Finally, he said, "When I'm around you, Everything feels real. When I'm not, it's like I'm acting again. Then stop acting. He let out a small laugh. You make it sound easy. It's not, I said softly. But pretending will kill you faster. He looked at me then, really looked. And for the first time, there wasn't fear in his eyes. Just sadness. I think I'm falling for you, he said quietly. I froze. He kept talking, words tumbling out like he'd been holding them back for too long. I know I shouldn't. I know it's wrong and complicated and stupid, but when I'm with you, I interrupted, voice shaking. Don't say it if you don't mean it. He leaned forward. I've never meant anything more. The world felt too small for both of us then. He reached out, hesitating before his hand found mine. His fingers were cold, trembling. I don't know what happens next, he whispered. Neither do I said, but we can figure it out. He smiled faintly. You always make it sound possible. Maybe it is. The rain kept falling outside, steady and quiet. He didn't leave that night. He stayed sitting there, shoulder against mine, breathing slowly like someone finally learning how. And for a little while, there were no rumors, no fear, no lies, just two boys in a dark room, holding on to something that the world wasn't ready for. Something real. The next morning, the world felt sharper, too bright, too loud. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was a knowledge that what happened last night couldn't stay hidden forever. Caleb left before dawn. I watched from the window as his truck disappeared down the street, the sound of the engine fading into the cold air. When I got to school, it was like everyone already knew. Whispers followed me again. The same old story, only this time with names attached. My name. His name. By third period, my hands were shaking. Lauren found me first. I was at my locker when I heard the click of her heels, that familiar rhythm that used to echo across the halls before pep rallies. She stopped right beside me. Evan, she said, voice low, controlled. I turned slowly. Lauren. She stared at me for a long time, her expression unreadable. Where is he? Caleb, don't play dumb. I hesitated. I don't know. Of course you do, she said. Her voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. There was more danger in her calm than in any scream. He's been different for weeks. Distant. Now everyone's whispering your name with his. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. You think you're the first? She continued. You're not. He gets bored. He gets curious, and then he... Stop. She blinked. Excuse me. He's not like that. Her laugh was quiet and cruel. You really believe that? I do. She leaned closer. Then you don't know him as well as you think. Before I could reply, she turned and walked away, her perfume lingering like smoke. I didn't see Caleb until lunch. He came into the cafeteria looking like he hadn't slept, eyes dark, shoulders tense. He spotted me immediately and crossed the room, ignoring the whispers that rose in his wake. Hey, he said quietly. Hey, I repeated. That's it. He winced. We need to talk. Yeah, no kidding. He grabbed my arm and guided me toward the doors. The room fell silent behind us, the sound of gossip trailing like footsteps. We ended up behind the gym again, our unofficial no man's land. Lauren talked to me, I said before he could speak. He froze. What did she say? That I don't know you, that this is just some phase you'll forget. He looked away. She's angry? Yeah, well, so am I. His jaw tightened. I didn't mean for her to find out. You didn't mean for any of this, did you? I said, but you kissed me anyway. You showed up at my house. You told me you were falling for me. What was that, a mistake too? Don't do this. Do what, Caleb? Expect you to choose? He ran a hand through his hair, eyes flashing. It's not that simple. Yes, it is, I said. It always is. You either want this or you don't. He looked at me then, really looked, like he was trying to memorize my face before erasing it. I do, he said quietly, but I can't. Something inside me cracked at those words. You can't. I repeated, or you won't. He stepped forward, but I backed away. You think I don't care? He said. I care too much. That's the problem. Then why are you acting like I'm the one you have to hide? Because if people find out, I lose everything, he said, voice rising. The team, the scholarship, my dad. And me? He went silent. That's what I thought. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist. Evan, wait. Let go. He didn't. Please. I faced him, tears burning my eyes. You can't have it both ways, Caleb. You don't get to love me in secret and pretend in public. He flinched like I'd hit him. You think this is easy for me? No, I said, but at least you get to decide who you are. I've been fighting that battle my whole life. He let go. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The only sound was the wind whistling through the chain-link fence. Finally, he whispered, I'm sorry. Yeah, I said. So am I. And I walked away. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I skipped my last class, wandered the empty hallways, ending up in the art room again, the only place that still felt like mine. The light was dim, dust floating in the air like ghosts. I sat at my usual table and opened my sketchbook. For the first time, I didn't draw him. I drew the space between us, the silence, the distance, the storm that never stopped. That night, my phone buzzed again. Caleb. She knows everything. I told her. Me, why? Caleb. Because I couldn't lie anymore. Me, and what did she say? Caleb, that it's over. That I ruined everything. Me, and you? Caleb. I don't know who I am anymore. I stared at the screen for a long time, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed back. Me. Maybe now you can find out. He didn't reply. The next day, his locker was empty. His friend said he'd quit the team. No one knew where he went after that. Days turned into weeks. The whispers faded, replaced by new rumors, new scandals. The world moved on. But every time I passed the art room, I could still feel it. The memory of him sitting beside me, the way his laughter filled the space like sunlight. I told myself to forget. But the truth is, some stories don't end when people leave. They end when you finally stop waiting for them to come back. 6 months. That's how long it had been since I last saw Caleb. 6 months since the locker room whispers stopped. Since the art room went back to being just a place to draw instead of a place to breathe. Graduation came and went. He didn't show up. Rumor was he transferred to a prep school out of town to finish quietly. Whatever that meant. But even when he was gone, he wasn't. His ghost lingered in every hallway, every empty chair, every unfinished drawing in my sketchbook. I thought maybe time would fix it. It didn't. It just dulled the edges. Like a scar you forget is there until something brushes against it, and suddenly it hurts again. Summer arrived early that year, all sunlight and humidity. I started working part-time at a small coffee shop near the old football field. A quiet job, the kind that let you hide in plain sight. The days blurred together. Open, serve, clean, close. Until one afternoon, the doorbell chimed and time stopped. He walked in. Caleb, older somehow, thinner, sunburned from too many miles on the road. His hair was shorter, his eyes softer, but I knew him instantly. He froze when he saw me behind the counter. Evan, he said, like he wasn't sure if I was real. Hey, I managed. My voice didn't sound like mine. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he smiled, small, hesitant, like he was testing the weight of it. Didn't think I'd see you here, he said. Didn't think I'd see you anywhere, I replied. He laughed quietly, running a hand through his hair. Guess I earned that. He ordered a black coffee. Of course, no sugar, no cream. Always pretending bitterness didn't bother him. When the place emptied out later that afternoon, he lingered by the window. Finally, he said, You off soon? I nodded. 10 minutes. Mind if I wait? I hesitated. That depends. On what? Why you're here. His smile faded. I'll tell you. Just not here. We ended up walking along the field behind the cafe. The same one where he'd played under the Friday night lights, where I'd sat in the stands pretending I wasn't watching him. The bleachers were rusted now, the grass overgrown. It felt like a memory more than a place. He shoved his hands in his pockets. I thought about you, he said softly. Don't. It's the truth. I looked away. The last time you said that, you disappeared. He nodded slowly. I know. I was scared. Of me? Of myself, he admitted. Of what people would think. Of what it meant. And now, he took a deep breath. Now I don't care anymore. We stopped near the edge of the field. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of cut grass and something faintly nostalgic, like rain that hadn't fallen yet. I told my dad, he said suddenly. That caught me off guard. Told him what? About me. About us. I blinked. You did. He nodded. It didn't go great, but it didn't destroy me either. And I figure if I could survive that, maybe I could face you again. I didn't know what to say. He smiled faintly. You were the first person who ever saw me, Evan. Not the football captain, not the boyfriend, not the son. Just me, and I didn't know how to handle it. Then why come back now? He met my eyes. Because I finally can. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was full, the kind of quiet that holds forgiveness inside it. I exhaled. You hurt me, Caleb. I know. You left without saying goodbye. He nodded, and I've regretted it every day since. Do you even know what it was like for me? His voice broke a little. I do now. I thought walking away would make it easier for both of us. It didn't. We stood there, two people who'd spent too long pretending they were over something that had never really ended. Finally, he said, I'm not asking you to forget or to forgive. I just needed to tell you the truth. He turned to leave, and for a moment I let him. Then I said quietly, Wait. He stopped. Do you ever wish we'd met later? I asked, when it wouldn't have been so hard to be who we are. He smiled sadly. Sometimes. But then I think maybe we met exactly when we needed to. I frowned. Why is that? Because you taught me what real feels like. He stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough for me to feel his warmth again. Can I ask you something? He said. What? Do you still draw? I hesitated. Yeah, sometimes. He smiled. You ever finish that sketch of me? My heart skipped. No. Why not? I didn't know how to capture someone who didn't want to be seen. He laughed softly, eyes glistening. Maybe now you can. We stood there for a long time, the sky turning gold around us. He didn't reach for me. I didn't move toward him. There was no need. Everything that had needed to be said was already there. In the space between breaths, in the forgiveness we both finally allowed ourselves to feel. When he finally turned to go, I didn't stop him. But as he walked away, he called over his shoulder, You'll freeze without me. I smiled. Not this time. Later that night, I sat in my room, sketchbook open. The lines came easily now. Steady, sure. Not of him exactly. But of two figures standing in a field, sunlight breaking to the clouds above them. It wasn't a love story anymore. It was something better. A story about finding warmth again, even after the cold. Sometimes love doesn't stay. It just shows up long enough to teach us how to see ourselves differently and how to forgive the versions of us that were too scared to love out loud. Would you have given him another chance? Or would you have let the past stay buried in the snow? If this story touched you, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because every heart has a story waiting to thaw.